Welcome. With us, you're not just a listener, you're part of the community, the movement driving real progress. Let's explore how big ideas can turn into real-world positive impacts together. My name is Ronnie Eriksson, and this is the Impact Series.
The Honorable Henry De Sio. You're known as the Global Ambassador for Changemakers. You're a highly experienced leadership advisor, campaign and organizational strategist, and social sector executive, having led both startups and large organizations. You were also the 2008 Chief Operating Officer of Barack Obama's presidential campaign and served as Deputy Assistant to the President in the Obama White House. These days, you're speaking and headlining at some of the world's most renowned venues, such as the Skoll World Forum in Oxford, the Asia Leadership Conference in Seoul, and the Global Child Forum at the Royal Palace in Stockholm, by invitation of the King and Queen. You also wrote the Changemaker Playbook, where you share your insights on how individuals and organizations can navigate this new strategic landscape defined by disruptive change. That's a pretty impressive list.
Thank you for the kind introduction.
Of course. And welcome so much to our beautiful podcast here at Katapult Future Fest. Super honored to have you here. Each of these episodes, they start with a what-if question to get the things going, but also throw our guest into the deep end. The what-if question is actually a question that is really close to my heart. It has to do with Changemaker, something that I've been happy to maybe call myself, but I can call many of my friends and actually most of the people here at the Katapult Future Fest. So the what if question goes like this. What if every leader would see themselves as a changemaker?
Well, that's a big question. You know, one of the things I discovered coming out of my time in the Obama campaign so I was in the bubble of the campaign for 2.5 years back in 2000, from beginning in 2007. Then the bubble of the White House beginning in 2009. So about 5 years, I was really wrapped up in this whole world of electing Barack Obama president and helping govern, assisting him as he's governing the country at that time. And when I came out, it was interesting because the world was this sort of one leader at a time world that I had grown up knowing. And we were attached to our jobs, our employer. That was kind of the world we were in. When I came out, I realized I discovered a whole very different world that had been playing out, unfolding on everyone's TV sets during that time. But I was, again, involved in the work I was doing at the time. When I came out, though, I saw that there was a new DNA running through society. It wasn't partisan. It wasn't specific to any state, even any country. This new societal DNA, innovative mind, service heart, entrepreneurial spirit, and collaborative outlook. And that discovery helped me realize, and of course, Obama campaign launched in 2007, around February or March. The iPhone didn't come out until something like August or September. So now we have the tools of change at our fingertips. And I think the world has been transformed particularly from that sort of snapshot in time, from a one leader at a time world to everyone leading in every moment. Now, to get to your question, what if everyone saw themselves as a change maker? It's true that while we have the two tools of change at our fingertips, I think empathy is the foundational skill that everyone has to have today. That's the requisite skill that maybe we didn't need in the past in that one leader at a time, execute your skills world. Now we have the ability to make change. We're all in the change game, and I have to know how my change is affecting you and how your change is affecting me.
So what is a change maker then?
Well, I think it does stem from the very heart of this new DNA that I talk about. And I think we all see ourselves as change makers more and more. When I came out of the White House, that wasn't a word at the time. In fact, I was working with Ashoka Innovators for the Public between when I came out of the White House. And during that period of time, we were driving a message of everyone a change maker, which was I think taking that hope and change to a new level. But But I think a change maker now, we have to actually understand that empathy is the foundation, and that the ability to tear down walls and bring two or more sides together around a problem or opportunity, that's the new requisite skill that everyone must have in this new world where everyone is, where change is increasingly the only constant.
Can't agree more. Can't like more than agree with that. It's beautiful way to put it. And Ashoka, really beautiful organizations. Happy to hear that you're also like linked with them. They're actually the reason why I ended up here at Katapult Future Fest last year.
Oh,
so
say more.
Yeah, long story short, like we built this organization called Ambitious Africa a couple of years ago, Changemaker organization between the Nordic and the African countries, allowing young people to build projects together. Through that, I became an Ashoka young changemaker. And then suddenly I found myself talking here on the stage. So young people get opportunities, show, and now I'm here like running a podcast.
Fantastic. So we have to dig into more into that then too, because I think the best way to understand change making is through young change makers. And I have a what if question, which is, what if we were to equip a whole generation to be change maker ready? Because I think that we have given the old playbook, we continue to pass on this old playbook from generation to generation, which basically says, get a skill, take that skill into a field, execute that skill as long as you can. But when my kids were coming up, when they were 5 and 6 years old, they're now 15 and 16. But when they were coming up, when I was at Ashoka, there was a new statistic that said 65% of job types that young people will assume don't yet exist. And for me, that was a big moment. So while I was seeing this new world of change, that was a confronting statistic for me as a dad, because I knew that the assembly line to everyone, a vocation that had been in that old playbook that had been passed on from generation to generation to generation, wouldn't work in this new game where we're in an everyone a changemaker world, where everyone must master empathy and have the ability to bring people together around challenges or opportunities.
That's so correct. Working with young people, I think there is where the power lies. They are going to be the future. They are like our what's next. We can't get away from that. Biggest change is done if those young people are ready to create change, exactly as you're saying. The beauty here, like in the Nordic region, you're also a fan of Oslo and visited here many times, is that here young people are people too. So from whatever young age, you're actually given a responsibility that you don't see in some of the hierarchical systems that we have in the world, where you need to have a degree or you need to be a certain type of person or achieve certain type of things to be trusted. Have you seen like that happening a lot throughout your work?
I think that's, first of all, you're at the front edge of something, I think, because I think most of us have been in that hierarchical system, even think in that hierarchical system. Even if we are coming into a new and very different world, we've all been given that old playbook. And what I like about what you're saying is I was working with the world's leading social entrepreneurs during that period at Ashoka. One of the things I dug into, especially around this question of how to equip young people to be change makers, was inside of the stories of those social entrepreneurs, there were 4 key elements of a framework that I now call the new startup of youth. It should be the new global apprenticeship, frankly.
Based on the LinkedIn founder startup of you book, right?
Well, yeah, I think I've borrowed from that, but startup of youth being
startup of youth.
Startup of youth being the idea that that we need a new growing up experience for young people, and based on these social entrepreneurs that I worked with, there were 4 key elements. One was that they master empathy at a very young age, before they're 7, usually modeled by the adults in their lives and parents, but also adults in the neighborhood, in the community. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that during those ages of 7 to 12, that's when the young person person starts to develop their own interests and their own passions, and to be able to learn and cultivate learning around and self-learning, in fact, around those interests seems to be a key element of the Changemaker experience. And I would argue that's also when adults try to say, "Oh no, not that. You need to like this, or you need to be interested in this." So there's often some pushback in those years. The third thing is in the teen years, being able to put, and you may have this in your experience as an Ashoka young changemaker, being able to put a team around your idea in your teen years and allow others to also own that idea. So again, rising to a challenge or opportunity, put a team around that is a third element. And the fourth element is leaving to learn. Sometimes that's outside of your zip code. Sometimes that is maybe outside of your country. I was an exchange student when I was a junior in high school to Sweden. But learning, having that opportunity to learn outside of your own perspective throughout life is another key element of that Changemaker growing up experience.
So I love what you're saying. I can't agree more. I'm kind of like getting so many ideas here, things that I would love to do, something we also need to kind of maybe discuss after this episode. But in the world right now, those things need to be put into practice. Is that something you're doing? Is that something that maybe your playbook is all about? Where do we get those step-by-step manuals or guidances or principles to actually get there?
Yeah, well, so I wrote Changemaker Playbook because I was compelled to equip a whole generation, our current generation, to thrive and to succeed in this new world in which change is increasingly the only constant. So part of it was my experience being with the world's leading social entrepreneurs. I thought, what can we learn from the world's leading change makers that all of us can use in our own lives? And so that the Changemaker Playbook takes into account, I think, three primary things. First off, the new nature of change in the world, which I hope we can dig into a little bit, because I think that's super important to talk through a little bit. What's different about change today than in the past? Because this is not our grandfather's change. So that's the first thing. So I spend the first few chapters talking through how change is changing. The second chapter is what are the skills and the tools that you need to command this new environment. And that really starts to dig into the different social entrepreneurs that I met over the years and understanding what are the commonalities, but also what are the unique contributions that each of these people made. And the third section of the book is talks about how to prepare young people for this new and very different world, particularly since we all share one thing in common, and that is the old playbook for the new game. We need a new playbook. And so hopefully Changemaker Playbook is starting that conversation on how we can crowdsource into this with ideas into this new environment that we're in today.
Yeah. It's kind of like we work with this New Nordic Way project and organization, and we're kind of we have this big realization that problems are not becoming smaller; they're actually becoming epidemics. So we have to fight bigger fights all the time. We can't do that alone. So you were talking about the teamwork, and then there is the other big realization, which is that technology alone is not enough to solve those big problems anymore. We need all the other industries, all the other capabilities, creativity, courage, grit, a lot of soft skills as well. So I don't know why they're called soft skills. They're probably the toughest skills you have to develop and to actually have. And then we need to understand what the playground is, so the world. And that's understanding that change of change. So what is that?
So, and I want to pull a few other threads as well and get to that question too, because for me, the realization came actually in the Obama campaign, and this is not a political statement, but a management reality for me. I came into that campaign with sort of that old 1 liter at a time mindset that we all have. It's what we learn in our history books, and it's what our parents talk about. You're either a leader or a follower, And so while I was a very, I think, an inclusive leader, I think that was still the framework that I had. When we built the campaign, he announced, and we opened up the campaign headquarters, I think 5 weeks later. We didn't have a staff yet. And so we were catching up to the announcement. And when you build an airplane in mid-flight, somebody gets the wings, somebody gets the fuselage, somebody gets the wheels, and you build it in silos. But the type of person that we hired was not suited to this siloed hierarchical system. And he had this sort of idea that you should build it. He had three things that he gave us. One, build it from the bottom up. The other is to respect everyone. And the third famous one, which is no drama, which is check your ego at the door. And what happened was, as events sped up, and the campaign, the pressure of the campaign was moving very fast, that one leader at a time system just wouldn't hold up anymore. And so we had to open up the whole system and allow everyone to step into their leadership. And when that happened, there was a new reality for me, which is when my colleagues younger colleagues in the lower middle rungs of the organization, when they led, they didn't lead and have a meeting and let's go out and do this. They basically saw the problem or opportunity. They pulled people based on their talents. They understood each other, and so it wasn't based on your job responsibilities or your job title. It was based on your talents and your aspirations, and they would pull people together around problems and opportunities. And that tearing down of walls, those departmental walls, and moving that way was a very fluid and fast way to move as an organization. And that was when the reality hit me that the physics of leading in this everyone leads system are totally opposite of the physics in the one leader at a time system. So in one, you have one person pointing the way, everyone else following. The other, you have everyone gathering around a problem and opportunity. You have information on a need-to-know basis. Everyone needs the information to act. Based on your skills, for every problem, a department. In this system, for every problem, a different team. And so that was when I started to realize that there was the physics of leadership are completely flipped. And that was how I realized that there's some new realities that I had to rethink as I was stepping out of the Obama bubble and into the world.
So that's kind of like viewpoint I've never had, but now that you're saying it makes a lot of sense. And if you look at these big success cases in the world, they normally always have this new type of leadership model where you kind of are picking the best people, combining different kind of expertise, allowing people to actually, from new perspectives, also solve the challenges. And it's also a lot better together, but it's also a lot more fun when you get to actually work with something that is meaningful.
And can I add to that?
Of course.
Because I think you're hitting on something, and it also pulls in your other point, which was we were known as the campaign that was sort of tech savvy, social media savvy. We had in this department at the time, it was 15 years ago. We called it new media, but it was really our sort of our signal that we had a department that was navigating this new medium. But even as we were known as the tech-savvy organization, it wasn't really technology that was the difference maker for us. It was the ability of everybody in the organization to tear down walls and bring two or more sides together that wouldn't otherwise connect around a challenge or opportunity. Sometimes technology made that possible. So we had this platform called myBarackObama.com, which gathered people into community. Sometimes technology was the result of bringing people together. We'd say today we need an app for that. But essentially, technology wasn't, but innovation, as we think of it, in that context, was and still is a very human thing. And technology just helps us to solve problems together as humans.
So I can more than agree with everything that you're saying. I think there is really, really good points. So what if we take all of these principles and all of these points that you're making and that we will be discussing about, we put them into practice? How will the world look in 10 years? What is the impact?
Well, I think so. If we follow the Changemaker Playbook, and this is why I think my big what if question is, how do we prepare a whole generation to be changemaker ready. Again, with empathy as the foundation, with the ability to tear down walls and bring two or more sides together around a problem or opportunity, I think we accelerate problem solving and solution making. And we can manage these large, complex issues that you're talking about, and we can get our arms around that. I always feel like the root challenge is in our ability to come together and solve these problems. So that's why I spend a lot of time talking about the future of our young people and how do we equip them uniquely for this new world that we're in. I think if we get to the heart of it, investing in our young people, it's a big bet, but I think it's a bet that will pay off for all of us in the future.
Yeah, the young people are the future. That's one thing we can't escape. We have here at Katapult Future Fest 500 brilliant minds, people with actually like a lot of possibility to impact, a lot of possibility to inspire. We need to get this story through to them because they are the ones who are able to take it down to the communities, to the schools where the young people are. How do we do that?
Well, it's interesting. So first of all, if we talk about young people, you can apply this framework. Remember, empathy, learning, self-learning around your passion, putting a team around your idea, and then leaving to learn. It's a great framework for the growing up years, but it's a framework that we can all use throughout life. It can be easily applied if you're a parent or if you have a young person in your life. It can be easily integrated into the school system. It can be easily integrated into community activities. If we just took that simple framework, empathy, self-learning around a passion, putting a team around an idea, and leaving to learn, I think we would go a long way toward making up some of the ground that we're losing when we stay focused on strict skill building and old ways of development, personal development. So now, also at Katapult, it's interesting because we have, I think I've heard we have 650 people at this event this week. This is coming together as a team of teams. One large team of teams. Behind every one of us is multiple teams. And so we can take these ideas back from this festival to wherever we are and integrate those into every part of our life in a way that can be hugely impactful. So this is bringing this team of teams together can be the seedling for ideas that go out into the world and thrive.
Actually, that takes me to a question that I've been wondering a lot in my life, and you might have the answer. So, we tend to go to a lot of these events. We tend to go to a lot of festivals, keynotes, workshops. We get a lot of inspiration, but we struggle in taking that onward. How do we become better at actually giving forward the things that we learn?
Yeah, for me, that's why I wrote Changemaker Playbook. Is because one is there is a big picture sort of framework. The problem is well defined. There's a big picture framework. And then through the social entrepreneurs that I work with, that I've worked with over the years, there are stories and how-tos that everyone can pick up and use. I think at events like these, we need the big picture, we need the framework, and we need stories that we can take back and hopefully some way to feed those stories back in. I think that's sort of the role that you uniquely play, is to bring stories out and then also to receive them back. So you're uniquely positioned here at Katapult to be able to see and hear what people are doing, collect the stories, but then also travel with people over time to see how those are bearing out.
And that's a big problem with events, is that there is normally high price tags, then the best and brightest people talking, and then it's only close to that certain closed group of people. So that's what makes me so happy, is to talk with people like you, actually learn, but then also distribute that information to the wider whole. Anyone who is interested gets the inspiration, but then also the great work that you have done will travel further along, maybe even to Finland where you haven't been yet.
I'd be happy to. Can I ask you, what was your idea as a youth that made you a young change maker?
Yeah, so it was creating youth-led communities. So in Finland, we have had this organization called Slush, biggest and best startup event of the world, kind of like the mother of these like startup summits, built completely by young people, led completely by young people. So we wanted to replicate that model so that it would be a platform throughout the world for young people to do the same thing. So that's kind of like model replicating it now between the Nordic and African countries was the first start, and now doing it on scale in other kind of motions, what took it. So.
And what were the lessons that you learned? I'm curious to hear what the lessons were that you learned from youth-led organizations.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think actually it's also a really good way to wrap up our discussion. I think the biggest lessons is that you as a young people, you can actually do big and great things. You actually have the power to move mountains. Everyone wants to support young people. There is a lot of support if you just ask. If you do things at a really early age, you come into this motion of learning by doing, which is my favorite philosophy. So the more you do, the more you learn. It's easier to tie to your studies. It's easier to tie to all the things around you. And you pretty automatically create this growth mindset. So you don't survive with the classical fixed mindset in that environment. You really need to be able to grow and change the way you think and work with different kind of people. So like just those four simple philosophies and principles together, and you're more set for whatever challenge that comes in front of you.
That's fantastic. And I think it follows that same framework, but that idea of self-learning and learning by doing, I think is a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
This has been like an amazing discussion. I wish I had like 2 or 3 more hours time, but thankfully the festival will continue. A lot of like practical tips and tricks, and I will make sure that the Changemaker Playbook will also find a new audience, so we can actually do what we believe together that should be done. Do you have anything like a last tip you want to say here in the end, or last sentence of inspiration?
Sure. I think, what you're describing is I think young people are modeling this. You know, I grew up with the notion of social responsibility, but young people today, and particularly through organizations like yours, are learning social responsibility, 3 words, social responsibility. And I think that is the key to our future. So I appreciate you highlighting that for me.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining. It was a great pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very nice to meet you.